Home. Classification NDE like 4992 LH NDE like 9322. Experience description. Describe the experience. I have had precognitive dreams before, as well as feelings of déjà vu. However, this experience completely validates déjà vu as actual precognition as well as a following religious experience that mirrors many NDE stories I've since read. I was at my friend N's house. At the time we made music on the computer and would go to his car to listen to them. His car had an expensive stereo setup with subwoofers, etc., so the music would mirror what it sounds like when played in a club/bar setting. While listening to our latest song, N exclaimed to me, "Oh dude, look at this," and reached into the back seat of his car. He pulled out a shoe box and inside were some new Jordans that were just released that year. I don't personally understand the obsession with expensive shoes, and nor had N up until that point as well. I found this really odd, and then began to wonder why the situation seemed so similar. My friend N kept talking about his nice brand new shoes and how they looked, but I was currently lost in the beginning of the déjà vu experience. I was at this point unable to understand why the situation seemed so eerily familiar and was just lost in my own head as N put on his new shoes and was pleased with himself. His mother then walked out of the house and exclaimed, "N, I need you to cut the grass, you said you would do it yesterday." N replied, "Oh man, we were just going to D's, another friend, house. N, I'm just asking you to cut the grass," his mom yelled back at him. "But I just put my new shoes on," N replied. "Well, take them off then," his mom answered. During this whole exchange the situation is becoming more and more familiar to me and the sense of déjà vu intensified. "Oh man, I gotta cut this stupid grass. Is that cool?" N stated as he started to take his shoes off to put on his old ones. I mean, yeah," I replied as N got out of the car. I walked around to the back of his house following him to the backyard. His house was shaped like an L with the garage under the first floor of the house. There was a side door going into the family room in the basement where we normally hung out. Outside of this door was 4 metal folding chairs we used to smoke cigarettes outside, and I picked one of these up while my friend N was complaining about having to cut the grass. I sit down in the driveway and N walks up to me and starts talking to me. It is this view of looking up at N that triggers my memory. Now for context, I am 6 feet 4 inches and N is 5 feet 5 inches, I'm being generous, so the view of me looking up at him is not a familiar one. It is this view that makes me remember the dream, because this view made me think in the dream I was a young kid while my friend N was at his current age. For some reason that specific detail/oddity sparked my memory of the entire dream. N walked away to go to the side door to enter his house and go into his garage, but in my head I am remembering the entire dream and thus the entire past 5 minutes from the car to the new shoes to his mother coming out and asking about the grass. The dream is slowly catching up to reality, and the pause of sitting there waiting for the garage door to open allowed my memory of the dream to overtake the speed of reality. For the next 2 to 3 minutes I have full awareness of what is going to happen before it happens. The door is going to rise up, N is going to be on the other side and say, "Man, this is BS." Sound of a motorized garage door rising. N is standing there. "Man, this is BS." He's going to walk over to the lawnmower, try to pull it out, but it will be stuck on a bike. He's going to slam it off the ground 3 times and say, $% this stupid grass." Sound of footsteps, rustling of the lawnmower as it is stuck against a bike near it, bang bang bang. N exclaims, $% this stupid grass. It is about this time that I become aware that I am feeling very nauseous and disoriented. N is going to push out the lawnmower and walk up to me. "Sorry man, my mom wants me to cut this stupid grass, we'll go to D's when I'm done. Sound of footsteps and the rustling of a lawnmower over pavement. Sorry man, my mom wants me to cut this stupid grass, we'll go to D's when I'm done, Ann says as the feeling of disorientation and nausea continues to increase. His mom is going to open the sliding glass patio door on the deck above me. She's going to say, "And I just asked you to cut the grass, it's not a big deal." Sound of a glass patio door sliding open, footsteps. "And I just asked you to cut the grass, it's not a big deal," his mom said down to N and continues to talk to his mother at this point, but the feeling of nausea and disorientation has increased to such a degree that I can no longer deal with it. I feel the need to curl up into a fetal position and just collapse onto the ground, and I try to do that. However, it's at this point I realize that my body is not curling up into a fetal position, but falling over and still talking to my friend N and his mother without me controlling it. At this point of shock, nausea, and spinning, I realize that I can see the back of my own head. When I come to the realization, I feel myself being drawn up and back away from my body. The feeling of nausea and disorientation I felt before was nothing compared to the feeling now, it increased 100-fold. I begin to black out at the edges of my vision while looking down at my body that was talking to my friend N as he's trying to start the lawnmower. The only thing my brain could think of as I start to fade into the blackness staring down at the back of my own head as I float away is that a bald spot? Am I going bald? Note, yes I was. I wake up. I am lying on a white stone slab in a forest. The trees are birch trees but impossibly tall and straight. Something about them seems off, as well as the various plants that cover the forest floor. The stone I am lying on is part of a ruined stone building, and there are other stones and ruins about me in the forest. Everything around me has a glowing aura about it, particularly the stone I am lying on. The stone itself looks jagged, but when I actually touch it, it is smooth as glass. The coarseness is actually the aura the stone is wrapped in and not the stone itself. I struggle to comprehend what is going on and I absently pick up a leaf off the ground. It resembles the normal birch leaf, but is simultaneously green and vibrant but impossibly at the same time also the reddish-orange of a fall leaf. I turn the leaf in my fingers and I realize the aura around the leaf is not just a glow, it is a very specific pattern. I cannot describe it, but it's like looking at something with 3D glasses, except it has full geometry, whereas with 3D glasses everything pops out directly at you. I keep turning the leaf over in my fingers, and as I do so I begin to develop what I will call true sight. True sight in this realm is like 8 dimensions layered over what you can see. Looking at the leaf, there are little fronds coming off of it that are colors that don't exist in this world. I can see the entire leaf's life by looking at it. I can look up at the tree and see the exact branch it fell from. I look back at the stone I'm lying on and I see a vision of the city that once existed here. True sight is very disorientating as I am seeing different dimensions and time non-linearly, something our earthly brains cannot handle or process. It is akin to information overload, something that will come into greater play later on. I stand up while looking down at the stone and I start to look around me. Having developed true sight, I am instantly bombarded by everything around me. I can see the life story of every single tree and I can see thousands of trees. I see the landscape and city that existed previously. I see colors and shapes that do not exist here. It is at this point, I look straight down at the ground as the information is too overwhelming for me. I begin to wander towards something, I don't know what or why, but I am drawn in a specific direction in the forest. I continue to walk for a long time, and then I come upon a clearing and a river. Something I didn't notice before, but in this forest there were no animals, they are all here, lions, tigers, deer, rabbits, cats, dogs, and animals I've never seen before that do not exist on Earth. Everything is here, but there is no fighting, no hunting, no feeding, the animals do not attack one another. While this sight might frighten many people, I have been very good with all animals. I can befriend an animal extremely quickly and have a deep love and compassion for animals. I walked amongst them, with the true sight. I learned I can talk to them, hear their thoughts, and at the same time they can hear my thoughts. There are no secrets here. I could not lie because someone can look at me and see everything about me. I remained here amongst the animals for a long period of time, talking and petting them. It is at this point that someone arrives. I will just call this person the guide. The guide looks at me. We know you love animals, but we do need to go. He's waiting. I'm sorry. I'm just happy here. I look back at him. Actual speech is worthless when you have the sight. Thus begins the true adventure. I do not remember long stretches after this point as my memories were taken from me later, will explain, but I remember snatches of rivers and mountains and ruins. The next part of my memory that was left to me was standing in the city itself. It is a walled city. The stone of the walls is the same as the stone from the ruins I woke up on. It is white stone that looks coarse but when touched feels as smooth as glass. It resembles a cross between white granite and marble. The houses here are a mixture between ancient Greek or Roman houses, to Germanic townhomes from the 1600s to British-looking cottages. There is no real set layout or material for any of the homes here. They are all vastly different to one another but somehow seem to belong together. The guide walks me down the main street of the city towards the massive cathedral/castle/city in the center. There is something going on and there are many people out and about on the main roads. Looking at a crowd of people with true sight is not advisable, not for someone who is still alive. The forest was disorienting, but a crowd of people with their much more complicated thoughts is painful. My guide looking at me knows I am in distress and decides to go off on the side streets to avoid the crowds. We walk down through alleyways and past homes, and we come across what I can only describe as a sitting garden. There are stone benches facing what seems to be a flat stone wall, as well as little planters with flowers on them. The entire setup looks like something we would have today, but the blank stone wall would have a TV on it. I am confused by the setup so I look at the wall directly, by mistake. The description of a sitting garden is apt, as inside the wall is the most beautiful garden I have ever seen. The act of looking at this wall sucks a portion of me into it, my body still exists in the sitting garden and collapses backwards onto my seat, but I am now two people. One entranced on the ground and one inside of this garden. I can walk around in the garden, I have a second body, there are other people here as well. My guide becomes exasperated by the fact my body is at this moment comatose because I am not used to this kind of translocation. Living in two bodies simultaneously and experiencing all of the senses of both as well as true sight was beyond disorientating. The guide tells me to just wait here and he'll come back. He needs to do something and he walks off. I walk around the garden and see the flowers and buildings inside, but as this is happening a child approaches my real body back in the garden. He apparently knows me and is very excited that I am back. He is talking a mile a minute at me like children do, but the fact I am split into two bodies I cannot understand him. However, the act of him speaking to me helps me understand how to draw my second self back into my body and regain control. As I do so, he already has finished talking to me, said he'll see me later and runs off. I am now sitting in the garden with no guide in this strange city. But I start to remember who I really am. The next part is very personal, but suffice to say, I went home. But going home was a bad idea, as I began to actually fully remember, and I leave before that happens. I walk back to the sitting garden and the guide is waiting for me, and we continue on to the cathedral/castle/city. The description of cathedral/castle/city sounds strange, but it is a giant cathedral, so large that the city continues on inside of it. On the buttresses along the ceiling there are homes, along the street inside are homes. And inside I encounter the first of what I now know is an angel. I see an ophanim, it is floating above a part of the city just existing. If you are not aware, they are a set of concentric rings floating around each other and covered with eyes. I looked at it, and looking at something with true sight is communicating. It began to communicate with me, it was happy I was back and wondered how I was doing. The weight of the communication dwarfs anything I have experienced so far and exceeds the sitting garden in dislocation. I am intensely aware that the rings continue inside, growing smaller and smaller until it is the size of a virus, and also larger and larger so that it entirely encompasses not only the city, but everything. However, it instantly realizes I am still alive and am not capable of communicating with it. It pulls itself back from me while apologizing. But the damage was already done. At this point in the journey I crawl on my hands and knees and only stare at the ground. The guide is bemused by this, knowing I am not a religious man, but this crawling is a very pious display. I reply that honestly, I am doing it because I developed the sight, and everything in this place is beyond overwhelming. Staring at the tile along the ground is preferable at this point. The guide is quite amused by this and laughs. We continue on our trek, with the townsfolk all looking at me crawling along and laughing. It is not a mocking laughter, more like, "Hey, why is Tom the butcher crawling on his hands and knees down the street? What is he doing?" It is then that most of them see the guide and realize I am not dead yet, and they fall into silence. I then come to what I can only describe as a throne room. The object of my journey. Very disoriented still from the encounter with the ophanim, I am very wobbly and sort of just stand there waiting for whoever is supposed to talk to me to come. After about a half hour of waiting I sort of scan the room and realize it's just me and the guide here. That is when I remember who the guide is. I then actually fall to my knees in piousness. Who it was, I don't know, the very identity and any memories of their face is removed. But what follows is a very long conversation with the guide. I remember standing there speaking with him for hours. I remember standing with him looking down at my body and cutting the grass around me. Afterwards I am told that I will have most of my memories of this taken from me, as knowing the truth breaks this world and the reason for being here. I am okay with that, but I just ask to remember something. As an agnostic, this was the thing I asked for, a slap in the face that something divine exists. The guide is okay with this, and sends me back to my body. I crash back into my body, feeling like I have been gone for decades. And I immediately have a panic attack because I forgot who I am. I didn't remember my own name, where I was, or what I was doing. I had complete amnesia. It wasn't until about 5 minutes later where N walks from finishing the grass on the front of the house that upon seeing him I remembered his name before my own. But remembering his name allowed me to remember myself. And as I remember myself, my thoughts from before immediately come back, including the dream, which isn't done. The last part of the dream was looking up at the corner of his house, and seeing a dove flying off. I slowly panned my vision up towards the corner of his house, and the dove had already taken off and is in the process of flying away. I find this odd because this is the only part of the dream that doesn't match reality. But my eyes land on the corner of the house, and there is another dove. The dove is staring straight at me, and I stare straight at it. We sit there looking at each other for about 2 minutes until it very slowly turns to the side, spreads its wings, and flies off. Background information: gender, male. Date: NDE occurred, 2009. NDE elements: at the time of your experience, was there an associated life-threatening event? No. Precognitive dream to OBE to NDE similar. Other sober and alert. How do you consider the content of your experience? Entirely pleasant. Did you feel separated from your body? Yes, explained in the description. I clearly left my body and existed outside it. How did your highest level of consciousness and alertness during the experience compare to your normal everyday consciousness and alertness? More consciousness and alertness than normal, explained in the description. At what time during the experience were you at your highest level of consciousness and alertness? After developing what I describe as true sight, were your thoughts speeded up? Incredibly fast. Did time seem to speed up or slow down? Everything seemed to be happening at once, or time stopped or lost all meaning. Time seemed almost irrelevant. Were your senses more vivid than usual? Incredibly more vivid. Please compare your vision during the experience to your everyday vision that you had immediately prior to the time of the experience. Explained in the description. Please compare your hearing during the experience to your everyday hearing that you had immediately prior to the time of the experience. Hearing while having true sight is almost pointless. It's like wanting a black and white television over a 4K LCD monitor. But otherwise, yes, I could hear normally. Did you seem to be aware of things going on elsewhere, as if by ESP? Yes, but the facts have not been checked out. Did you pass into or through a tunnel? Uncertain. I did black out from the sides of my vision, which might be construed as a dark tunnel. Did you see any beings in your experience? I actually saw them. Did you encounter or become aware of any deceased, or alive, beings? Uncertain. After this event it feels like friends and family from this world is the same as a co-worker in the next. Did you see, or feel surrounded by, a brilliant light? A light clearly of mystical or otherworldly origin. Did you see an unearthly light? No. Did you seem to enter some other, unearthly world? A clearly mystical or unearthly realm, explained in the description. What emotions did you feel during the experience? Explained in the description. Did you have a feeling of peace or pleasantness? Incredible peace or pleasantness. Did you have a feeling of joy? Incredible joy. Did you feel a sense of harmony or unity with the universe? I felt united or one with the world. Did you suddenly seem to understand everything? Everything about the universe. True sight gives complete understanding of everything around you. Did scenes from your past come back to you? No. Did scenes from the future come to you? Scenes from my personal future as described. I had a dream of the exact events leading up to the OBE. Did you come to a border or point of no return? No. God, spiritual and religion. What was your religion prior to your experience? Unaffiliated agnostic with express stated thoughts that if a divine being exists to contact me and I will follow them. Have your religious practices changed since your experience? Yes, I now know something exists. What is your religion now? Do not know. I have seen the existence of a divine being, but the knowledge of who or what they are was taken from me, as knowing would invalidate the reason for existing in this plane. Did your experience include features consistent with your earthly beliefs? Content that was entirely not consistent with the beliefs you had at the time of your experience. Was an agnostic who hoped something existed. Did you have a change in your values and beliefs because of your experience? Yes, something exists. Did you seem to encounter a mystical being or presence, or hear an unidentifiable voice? I encountered a definite being, or a voice clearly of mystical or unearthly origin, explained in the description. Did you see deceased or religious spirits? I actually saw them. Did you encounter or become aware of any beings who previously lived on earth who are described by name in religions, for example, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, etc. Uncertain, not sure of the identity of the guide, but it was someone important. During your experience, did you gain information about premortal existence? Yes, explained in the description. During your experience, did you gain information about universal connection or oneness? Yes, explained in the description. During your experience, did you gain information about the existence of God? Yes, again, not sure of the actual identity of the guide. Concerning our earthly lives other than religion, during your experience, did you gain special knowledge or information about your purpose? Yes, but having it while still alive would defeat the purpose. During your experience, did you gain information about the meaning of life? Yes, but it was taken. During your experience, did you gain information about an afterlife? An afterlife definitely exists. Yes, I definitely entered the afterlife. With my experience mirroring a few NDE I've read. Did you gain information about how to live our lives? No. During your experience, did you gain information about life's difficulties, challenges and hardships? Yes, but it was taken. During your experience, did you gain information about love? Uncertain. Yes, but it was taken. What life changes occurred in your life after your experience? Large changes in my life. While the experience was great, it leaves me with a disconnection with this world. I understand why most memories were taken from me, as the little I do remember makes me feel reality less vividly. I have developed some amount of disassociation with reality. Have your relationships changed specifically because of your experience? Yes, I have grown more aloof. After the NDE, was the experience difficult to express in words? Yes, explained in the description. How accurately do you remember the experience in comparison to other life events that occurred around the time of the experience? I remember the experience more accurately than other life events that occurred around the time of the experience. I remember the entire event vividly, at least the portions that I was allowed to keep. Do you have any psychic, non-ordinary, or other special gifts after your experience that you did not have before the experience? No. Have you ever shared this experience with others? No. Did you have any knowledge of near-death experience, NDE, prior to your experience? No. What did you believe about the reality of your experience shortly, days to weeks, after it happened? Experience was definitely real. I talked to my friend N afterwards, and he said I behaved completely normally the entire time, even though I was not in my body at the time. What do you believe about the reality of your experience now? Experience was definitely real. I had full senses during the experience: touch, smell, hearing, sight, true sight, although taste is unknown as I didn't eat or drink anything. At any time in your life, has anything ever reproduced any part of the experience? No. Copyright 1998 to 2021 NDERF, Jody Long and Jeffrey Long MD. All rights reserved. If you have benefited from our